episode 48. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? You doing good? Doing good. I'm tired. I'm crazy busy. A lot of things happening.
A little stressful day for you today, as usual, on your Mondays.
Pretty stressful.
It seemed like last week, as soon as we recorded with Josh, again, thanks to him for doing that, like this huge news story broke the next day, and I'm like, damn it.
I was so pissed because we had just, like, a month prior been like, okay, Monday's our day.
Yeah.
Stuff always happens on Monday, but we changed things up, to like accommodate like Josh, and then of course, the biggest news story of the year, or at least I think the biggest news story of the year, happened, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah. If you are new here, we did get a lot of you listening to last week's episode, so we appreciate that. And you are willing to follow us. Anything you would like to do is linked in the show notes, either on the website or just in the show notes on your podcast player. So please go ahead and check that out, and that would be super helpful. And if you're giving us a second or a third chance, thank you. And see how it's going. We're almost a year old. So, but again, kudos to and appreciate to Josh for, tweeting it out a little bit and trying to grow our wings and broaden our horizons a little bit more, and just to do some stuff for everybody. But we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that releases on podcast networks on Thursday morning at 6 a.m. You can get in an hour or a day early. An hour. You get it 1 hour early for $7. No, you can get it 24 hours early if you go to patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming. But other than that, just like I said before, the show, all the social links are in the show notes, so you can join the groups, Discords, follow us. Anything you would like to do is there. And we are going to jump right into it. So it looks like we have a little bit of a follow-up from what we talked about last week.
Hey, remember last week when Josh suggested that Michelle Ancel was leaving because of bad things? And I was like, no, he's going to go do nature. The French newspaper, The Liberation, reported that he is leaving after being investigated for abuse. He has denied that is why he's leaving, but other employees at Ubisoft have confirmed, about 15, that he was being investigated for abusive, toxic behavior. So it looks like he isn't necessarily leaving because he wants to. I guess he was hoping if he left before the investigation was done, the stuff wouldn't come forward. But it turns out Ubisoft is just a shit show internally. I remember when Josh suggested that last week, I was like, no, he wouldn't have made this whole announcement if it was, because usually when this stuff happens, people kind of just fade away. They don't like make an announcement that they're leaving. They just walk away. Of course, this is all alleged stuff, but leaving when you're in the middle of an investigation is usually not a good sign.
Right.
But yeah, just wanted to follow up on that. Dave, any thoughts on yet another Ubisoft internal issue?
I feel like this is similar to like this. We're just getting this huge wave, and I'm not demeaning anything when I say this, but I feel like this is kind of like just the Me Too wave that we had like a year ago or a year and a half ago, however long it was.
Or 2 months ago. It's continuing.
I know it's still continuing, but we had a huge spike in it. And I feel like this is just kind of like where people are feeling more comfortable or compelled to actually speak out, which is good. But then it's also like, I think the only reason that they are feeling comfortable or compelled to speak out is because of, their coworkers or somebody else has said something. And again, I'm not trying to compare two things, but I used to have a really good relationship when I worked for Foot Locker with my auditor/investigator. She was like the head of LP. And she would tell me that when she was interviewing people that she suspected of doing things or that she knew had done something, that they're like a glass bottle of ketchup, that once you get it to start going, they don't stop talking. Mm-hmm. So like with, how you have a hard time getting ketchup out, but then when it finally comes out, it all comes out.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like that other people are seeing their coworkers and they're seeing people being embraced, and maybe they wouldn't have said anything, which sucks that they felt like they couldn't have said anything. And for them to feel comfortable enough to speak out is fine. But then the other side of the coin is that perception and reality can sometimes be different, and there's always two sides. So what maybe somebody was raised to think was okay, and not being told that bothered somebody for X amount of years, to then find out much later that it was bothering somebody, then again, who knows what the alleged abuse is or isn't. Like there's, obviously there's things that you're supposed to do in the workplace and things you're not supposed to do in the workplace. But I think sometimes I feel like it has such a bright light on it that sometimes the smallest thing can be made much larger than it is, and things that are supposed to be as large as they are made smaller than they need to be. So there's a no-win scenario in that.
In this instance, like we've seen that happen before where something gets blown out. Ubisoft has had so many of these. It just sounds like Ubisoft was just a boys club, which is why they started to clean up this year, and then they kind of just had a force to like... Now I'm starting to think that Ubisoft saw the signs of what was coming sometime last year, which is why they announced earlier this year, like, hey, we're going to change the way we develop games. We're going to shake up our editorial staff.
They tried to PR it correctly and say, like, oh, we want to refocus our video gaming aspects, and that's going to cause some changes in the staff. And probably 50% of that was true, and the other 50% it is, we need to get rid of some of these people, and we need to have a logical reason for doing it.
Yep. And then it just snowballed, and they lost control of like their messaging and spin. Yeah. And then now it's just this huge thing that they're just going to have to probably spend the next couple years probably like building up some teams, and
or the head just needs to go away and they need to appoint they need to hire a new face. Even if
the only problem is
go ahead.
Guillermo whatever
Guillermo.
The Ubisoft is owned by him and his four brothers. So
right,
it's literally they have to remove everybody.
I'm saying as a businessman, maybe he needs to realize that he needs to go away for a couple of years, and he needs to hire like a president, CEO, or CFO, and that's the person that needs to be on stage at E3 or in front of the camera at Ubisoft Forwards, and he just needs to go away and just be the quiet owner for a while, just until. I'm not saying he needs to sell Ubisoft or do any of that stuff, like, because it's his business and he earned it, but maybe from a business standpoint of like, okay, like I just don't need to be in the public until 2025 or something.
Yeah, he can't be the face anymore. Yeah. He can't be. Him and his brothers can't be. His brothers are in the back, and he's like the one that faces everybody.
He needs to go farther in the back and find. He needs to find his Phil Spencer.
Yeah, he needs to be the millionaire billionaire that is just in the back collecting a check, and not the one that's actually running the show. They need to put.
Can you think about it like this though? Like, think about if. And I'm going to use a broad perspective for this, I guess, but think about if for some reason like Ubisoft hired Adam Boyes and Adam Boyes stood in front of and did almost the same thing that Ease did, that didn't even make it in the Ubisoft Forward. I think that, again, and I guess I would have to I'd have to see some more statistical data to see where Ubisoft makes most of its money from. I would have to assume it's North America.
Yes.
And so to put, somebody that's very good at public speaking, which I think Ease is not. And I think, and it's partially because of his accent, it sucks. Like, but if you have a hard time understanding somebody, just like, for a long time, it was hard to understand Shu. And then when we go to press conferences, like even I love the press conferences, but when they have to put translators out there, like I get it, it's important. Like the guy made the game, but when the Street Fighter V guy is always on stage, and I'm like, I don't understand what he's saying.
There could be some issues with that. I don't really have that much of. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I totally understand from like the mainstream presentation thing that could be a little weird. Sometimes it could be a little awkward when the translator. Stuff we've seen with plenty of different press conferences where the like translator stuff is just a little awkward, which is why I think we're gonna see a lot more. We're starting to see it now of just the pre-tape presentations. That's the world we're gonna be living in for the next couple years.
And I think the host is a great idea. Like when Gabrielle Union was doing all the hosting stuff, when she was kind of on the Ubisoft stage.
Asha Taylor.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm terrible with people's names, as you guys know.
Yes,
Dwayne Wade's wife. No, just
no, wrong one.
Oh, see, I get them all mixed up then. So, but when they were even like when like PlayStation was putting the guy that out on there before, the spokesman. Again, I can't remember his name. Not part of Sony. They hired him to do it. Like did the commercials and everything like that.
Kevin Butler.
Yeah.
That's why you have me here. Aisha Tyler is the person that did the Ubisoft. Joe McHale was the one who did it before Isha Tyler.
I just think that sometimes it gives you a little bit more relatability, and then, because somebody goes, who's that guy? Because they don't know or care that he's the head of Ubisoft,
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, that's just a follow-up to that shit show that's at Ubisoft, which sucks because they make good games. Typically, people really like their games, but the people in charge are just
they've got
messing
some
it up.
they've got some good momentum going. Like Watch Dogs is getting good, good previews. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is people are putting that at the top of their next gen list. And then
Hyperspace Scrape already kind of disappeared.
I think that's just them trying to dab their foot in something that everybody else is getting money from.
Yeah.
And then, going into Immortals and Far Cry, they've got a good, end of the year coming up. And, and I just feel like there's, and it sucks because I feel like that people are going to be like, I'm not buying that game because I don't agree with the corporate management is doing. And it sucks for the people that are just working their ass off to make Watch Dogs or make Assassin's Creed as good as it is in the environment that they are.
Yeah. But that's it for that. Let's go into another confusing and story that's probably going to be frustrating because it's just why does it exist. Amazon have announced their new streaming service, Luna, which they are going to have a
beta.
Their Stadia beta, their beta of their version of Stadia / Project xCloud, and it will be available on PC, Mac, Fire TV, iOS, and Android in the future. It's $5.99 a month for the Luna Plus channel, which will include hundreds of games, including Resident Evil 7, Control, Panzer Dragoon, A Plague Tale, The Surge, Yooka-Laylee, Grid, amongst other games. That'll be $5.99 a month, and the controller is $49.99. Basically looks like the Switch Pro controller. It's basically that. Mm-hmm. And then they also announced they'll have a separate Ubisoft channel you can subscribe to. So it's Amazon jumping into the game. Dave, do you think Amazon should be jumping into this game? Do you think there's any Xbox is already going to be the leader in terms of what they're offering? I don't care.
I think Xbox is going to be the leader because of Game Pass and the titles that come with it that are guaranteed to come with it.
Yeah, Stadia's tech blows xCloud's tech out of the water. It just does. It just works better. But Microsoft has the library with their service, and that's why I think that's going to win over Stadia. I don't know what Amazon is really going to bring to this game, bring to this thing.
Other than there's probably I think they look at it and there's a bazillion Fire Sticks in the world and they're like, why not?
Yeah,
this is what I want Game Pass to be, though, is I want Game Pass to be an app on Roku or on Fire Stick or on Apple TV that I just click on, grab my controller, and play my games. That's what I want. And that's close to what xCloud is doing on tablets and Chromebooks and stuff. And I can talk about that a little bit later. But I think it's intriguing to me. I'm not going to do it, but it's intriguing to me that I have an Amazon Fire Stick in my bedroom television that I could just have a controller on my nightstand and I could play a game. That's intriguing to me. Is that intriguing enough to be worth $6? I'll have to see what the library looks like long term. But based on the initial library that they showed, no. Because I already have Game Pass Ultimate. And I'm hoping that there might be in the future some type of direct app on an Amazon Fire Stick for me to launch Game Pass Ultimate on my Fire Stick in the bedroom television, or on the Roku in my living room television, or at my parents' house.
I think Roku is the play, because Amazon, now that they have their service, are they going to really let Xbox jump in on the Fire Sticks? We already know Microsoft and iOS aren't doing well together, so they're probably going to have a hard road to get into iOS. And
I think Roku carries a lot of weight in terms of the streaming stick service.
Mm-hmm. And it's built into a lot of the lower end TVs. So if they can run on the lower end TVs, that would be very helpful for them.
A lot of those lower end TVs don't have Bluetooth connectivity, which then affects your ability to connect a controller.
Yeah, they would have to probably come out with another controller to just do Wi-Fi.
Xbox Roku.
Yeah, which I wouldn't be surprised if they partner with someone, because that would be the best market, because they're going to have different issues going with a Fire Stick, because Amazon's got their own thing. Amazon's very strict with how they do that.
Yeah, this essentially means no Game Pass on Fire Stick.
Yeah, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
That's going to be the issue. Though you can technically sideload into.
Yeah, that's too much work.
Yeah. I'm just saying you can do xCloud on a Fire tablet,
Yes.
which is owned by Amazon, but the Fire Stick
Because it's Android based.
Yeah, you can jailbreak a Fire Stick if you have to and probably get it running.
But I bet you can't jailbreak a Fire Stick and run Luna on it.
I don't know. As someone who works in retail, man, did Fire Sticks as soon as people found out about Kodi. Fire Sticks sold like crazy. People were jailbreaking them that you would not expect to be jailbreaking.
No, but I'm saying that if
Sticks.
somebody's interested in Luna and they go, oh, I have a Fire Stick, and they put Luna on there, I think they might be surprised what back-end thing happens to their jailbroken Fire Stick.
Oh, yeah,
that's
sure,
what I'm saying.
Sure.
So
The $599 is intriguing. That is the lowest entry level that we have, just because Project xCloud, you kind of have to buy into the whole thing to get access to it, the Game Pass Ultimate. And Stadia is a la carte, and Pro, I think, is like $10. So the $599 price tag is actually very
especially
intriguing.
if you don't have a console. Like if you don't have a console, like that's intriguing. Like if you have an Xbox, like I feel like getting Game Pass Ultimate and getting xCloud is just an extra layer.
Yeah. The only thing I wonder, which we'll talk about later, which they announced this shortly after Microsoft announced their big acquisition. How's that library actually going to look? Because right now we're in an arms race between Sony and Microsoft for buying publishers.
There's not going to be a lot of non-Sony, non-Microsoft IPs left.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. Yeah. I'm just like, ooh, okay, they got Capcom on here. They have,
because it just feels like it's the same games that have already been free on Plus or have already been on Game Pass, or like A Plague Tale has been playable multiple places. Control, I guess, is a big deal. But at this point,
I've seen a lot of AA publishers in their list of 100 games of the 505s and. Yeah,
at this point though, I think 505 got what they wanted from Control in terms of if they're gonna get their PS5 and Xbox Series customer no matter what. I think that if they're already buying a console and they want to play Control or they haven't played Control, they're going to get that customer. But now they may have an opportunity to introduce themselves to somebody that doesn't, because this thing's going to be, when I turn my Fire Stick on, it's going to be right there on the front page whenever it goes like fully live.
Yeah, and it's at a low enough entry level that I could see them just rolling this into Prime. Yeah. Which so many people already have Prime just because of shipping, and especially during
if they roll it into Prime, I'll play it just to play it. If they roll it into Prime, and it'd just be one of those things that I have. Like, I forget that I have Prime movies sometimes, and I'll check something on streaming, and it's like, oh, you just watch it here. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm totally the same way. I watch The Boys on Prime, and that's it. And then occasionally, when I use the Just Watch app, I'm like, oh yeah, this is on Prime. Okay, I'll watch that. Competition is good. Amazon has a lot of money to throw around. I just don't know if there's that many companies for them to throw money.
Well, and they did. I mean, hopefully, to your point too, like you were talking about, like they have bought in a couple of game developers over the last year or 2 years,
and it failed miserably with them.
They have, but I mean, hopefully that now they're still producing something in a little bit more of a long game, and then now that like maybe a cool thing comes out, that's something that and the only way to play it is through Luna, and that would be a big win for them if something can come out. That who did they just buy recently?
God, I don't know, but
yeah.
Because they buy them and then they just make them in Amazon lumber yard.
When they were buying them, they thought they were going to bring out a box. Like there was always that rumor that Amazon was going to bring out a console. So
yeah, and it turns out it's just going to be this. So you just have them kind of competing, and now I'm worried that because they have Amazon money, they could buy a publisher without even batting an eyelash.
Yeah, they could and 505.
Yeah, they can easily do that if they want. So now I'm a little fearful. I'm okay with the arms race when it's Sony, Microsoft, and I still think Nintendo's in like a dark horse in this buying thing because Nintendo has money, they just don't spend it. I don't want Amazon buying studios. Like I really don't. Like they've have a bad track record with producing video games content.
If they could figure out, no, never mind. That's not the right connection. I was gonna do Facebook connection, but it's not the right thing. I was gonna say it was so never mind. I was off track on that. So moving on.
All right. Okay, let's talk about our favorite subject: next gen consoles. We can't get enough of these until we can fucking finally play them. And someone popped in the chat saying, do we have PS5 pre-orders? Yes, I have a PS5 with the disc drive pre-ordered, and Dave has 2 because he's a crazy person.
I believe in CYA, okay? So,
okay.
All right. So let's talk about this because he brought it up and we didn't before we dip into the memory, and then the next story will be the next one.
Yeah.
So Snake1972 asks, what is your opinion that PS4 saves will not transfer to PS5? I wanted to get the PS4 version to get the free update for PS5 to save some money. I believe you're talking about Spider-Man. And I initially was annoyed when I saw this, but then I keep forgetting that the Spider-Man that's going to be on PS5 is a fully remastered version of the game.
Or so they say.
Yes, they're claiming it's a full remaster of the game, and it's going to have it's going to have different trophies, and I believe it's going to include all of the content that released on the Game of the Year edition.
Yes.
So it is technically a separate SKU instead of it just working better on PS5. Go ahead.
No, and you can still play your PS4 version of Spider-Man on your PS5.
Yeah, but that is starting to raise the question that everybody doesn't know the answer to yet, because this question has started with the PS Plus collection that they announced of all these PS4 games that are going to be on PS5, and what it appears to be is exclusive to PS5 as part of the Plus collection. I got to be careful how I say this. You can play God of War on PS5 if you have the PS4 disc. So you're not going to just only be able to play God of War through the PS5 collection. But what people are starting to ask now is God of War going to run better than it on PS5 than it did on PS4? And I don't think it is. I think it's just going to play your game.
That's the thing, especially with Microsoft. So I don't know if you saw, Dave, today, Microsoft actually put the console in people's hands and let them play backwards compatibility games, right. And they're seeing a crazy jump in performance in terms of like frame rates going up.
Microsoft has told us that since they started the backwards compatibility. But I think
the questions are going to get louder because of the stuff that came out today.
But I feel like if Ghost of Tsushima or Last of Us Part 2 was going to be quote unquote better on PS5, we would know that right now.
Yes. I feel like the only logic I can think of, like, yes, it will play better just because more horsepower will be there, but I can also see, based on Sony's past with marketing, they don't want to hurt current sales for those games. That's the only thing I can think.
I agree, and I get that. And then Snake's also saying that there's also another rumor that Assassin's Creed and Cyberpunk will not transfer to PS5. So, I don't understand that logic, because CD Projekt Red has come out and said, we don't have a next-gen SKU.
Not yet. They will later down the road.
So the version, I don't think you can buy a PS5 version of Cyberpunk. Yeah, you can go to the PS5 store and you can buy Cyberpunk, but you're just getting the PS4 SKU.
Correct.
It's the PS4 download. And same thing with Assassin's Creed. I don't know. I mean, I think Ubisoft will do it because they're Ubisoft, but I think that if somebody really broke it down, and this would be really bad for Ubisoft, but I think this is 100% true in my mind. If you go to a store and you bought a PS4 copy of Assassin's Creed Valhalla and you brought a PS5 copy of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I think that if you opened the discs and ran the data off the discs, they're going to be the same data.
Probably. And maybe just one line of code would be different to be like unlock frame rate.
So in terms of saves transferring, I think that you're gonna. I don't think that. I think transferring is not going to be a thing, because you're going to be on the same. Essentially, you're going to be on the same UI. Like you're gonna whatever you're doing on PS4 is gonna, like, if you move it to the cloud, you're gonna pull it down and you're gonna play it on PS5. Like, I don't feel like there's gonna be this barrier where you couldn't take something from PS3 and put it on PS4. You're gonna be able to move stuff back and forth on PS4 and PS5, like, because I think it's gonna be the same, essentially the same ecosystem. If you were on PS3 back in the day, you could not, if Michael was playing a game on PS3, he could not tell that I was playing a game on PS4 if I was online. But if I was on PS4, I could tell that Michael was playing a game on PS3. I think that if Michael's on PS4 in December playing a game and I'm on PS5, he's going to see that I'm on PS5 playing a game. Because they've already said that I can play Destiny with somebody on PS4. They've already said I can play Call of Duty with somebody on PS4. So that's why I think that you're on the same network or interface, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, like, because I saw people upset that the remastered version of Spider-Man won't use your PS4 save, and were upset about it. You've never been able to do that previously. Like, when Shadow of the Colossus remake came out, I wasn't saying, like, can I use my save from the PS3 version of Shadow of the Colossus or the PS2 version of Shadow of the Colossus in this new Shadow of the Colossus on PS4? I've said that too many times and I can't say it anymore.
Sony has just done a really bad job early on of making sure people understand that Spider-Man on PS5 is a remaster. They've done a terrible job of explaining that.
Yeah. Like, they need a chart for it as much as I hate charts.
And I also think that people, I looked at the date and I forgot how far it was because of, again, obviously I still haven't played it yet, but now I'm probably just going to wait. I feel like it was, I started to compare dates and because I thought I had a logical argument and I didn't, of the time from Last of Us coming out on PS3 to Last of Us coming out on PS4 as the remaster was very short. I think it was only 18 months. And then Spider-Man will be almost 2 full years. Yeah. So in terms of the time frame, it seems like it's okay. Like, I think we'll really have to see. It sucks because, like you said, Microsoft has put consoles in front of people's hands, and the people are playing the games and checking it out and talking about how things are running and working, and Sony hasn't done anything. There's a rumor that we're going to see some stuff on Sunday on PS5 gameplay coming up later on this week, but. It's raising all these questions of people are like, well, what are you doing? And I think that some of these questions might go away when somebody boots up Spider-Man PS5 remaster and goes, holy crap, like in terms of what it does or doesn't look like. And I think that, that's going to be the case. And God, I hope it's the case, because if people are like, oh, he's got an extra, I can see him blink, like that's not going to do it.
Well, no, and especially if Sony is just like, hey, the load times are better. It's like, well, the load times weren't bad in the first place, right. And Xbox now has multiple videos of loading
I saw it today. Like Red Dead Redemption was 2 minutes and 10 seconds on Xbox One X, and on Xbox Series X, it's 34 seconds.
Yes,
that's a lot.
I can't undersell how happy and excited I am for SSDs on consoles, because I've wasted too much time already.
All right, so I didn't mean to derail that, but I wanted to talk about that because you brought it up in chat, and it's been something that was on the internet, and I put it in the Facebook group. But then you talking about SSDs leads into this one, so this is not shocking. Like, people have been talking about this for a year, but Xbox 1 terabyte storage cards cost $220.
Yes, they're proprietary. They're only going to be made by Microsoft and Seagate, their partnership. So they set the standard, they set the price. It's going to be $220, which is fucking crazy, because if you think about it, if you're buying a Series S, it has 500 gigs. You want to expand the storage, you might as well just buy the One X at that point.
Yeah, you should. But also, this is in line with the memory chips that we believe are going to work in PS5.
Yes, but the PS5, they're going to put the white list of compatible drives, which is good, and it's going to be for multiple parties. So there's going to be at least a pricing war for that, and we'll see some price changes. Microsoft and Seagate control this price. So
yeah, and I think that the fact that they control the price, that essentially Microsoft controls the price, is that they can deal with it when it happens. Yes. I think that the concern is, at least from Microsoft's standpoint, is that whether you believe in this or don't believe in this, is that they're controlling what they know will work with their console, versus because Paris brought this up. I was talking to Paris. No, I wasn't. Paris and I messaged back and forth this week, but Paris brought it up on a video or a live stream that he was talking about for Gamertag Radio, where he said, yeah, there's going to be a value hard drive out there that works with PS5. But what happens if the failure rate is super high? Are you going to trust your newly generated PS5 game save to a hard drive that has a possible 50% crash rate because you saved $100?
Yeah, there's the pros and cons. Like, Microsoft they can set the price on this. It's going to be set at $220, depending on.
It's going to go down in 13 months.
It's going to go down based on demand, which is going to rely on how many consoles they sell, really, to be honest. It's going to be like, okay, there's enough people buying the Series S that we need to get these hard drives in people's hands. They'll drop the price then. Sony will put out their...
that's what we were saying. So the NVMe 2 is in line. Like, this is how much these drives cost. 1 terabyte drives cost for a PC. And yes, the PS5 will have an expandable memory slot.
Yes, and the drives that are compatible with it, or the ones that we think will be compatible, range from 200 to 250.
Yeah, are in line with the pricing of this. My biggest thing that I'm okay with, because some people are like, oh, I found this one for $189. That's a 1 terabyte. It's going to work with PS5. Like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But like, how easy? I'm okay in my mind. Like, maybe you slide off one of the sides of PS5 and you insert this chip.
It's an extra slot, so there's already an empty slot for you to pop in.
You insert the chip in there and you slide the thing back on. That might be right. But because changing out the PS4 hard drive, not that it was hard, but it was challenging. It can be challenging for some people. It's not
if you didn't know what you're doing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Now with the Xbox Series, it's a memory card that you slide in the back of your console and you're done.
Yeah.
Like, that's worth a couple extra bucks to me. That's worth the extra $20 or $25 in a price differential. If I had to if you're weighing the pros and cons, I know why Microsoft did what they did. Here's your cartridge, stick it in the back, and I bet, eventually down the road with the size of these games, like, especially if you have a Series S, and if these prices drop, like, it might be one of those things where you might end up doing a Langford thing where you have video games from A through H on this card and H through M on this card, and
yeah, like, it's going to be simpler and people are going to be able to understand that. It's SD card size thing that pops in and goes in there. My fear with the Sony one, other than I'm happy about the Sony situation because there'll be competition in price and we'll see those prices fluctuate more than we'll see the Series S and X solution fluctuate. The only thing I'm worried about is you need very specific specs to get it to actually function and run with your system the way it's supposed to, which means you're going to have to rely on dumbass people at Best Buy or other brick and mortar stores when you go in and you're like, hey, I need an NVMe 2 drive for my system. And they're just going to be like, well, the Best Buy branded one is $80. The Samsung one that you need is $200. And then the person's going to be like, well, I guess I'll just get the $80 one. Like, they'll still put that as an option.
Right.
Like, retail employers would be like, just get the $80 one. It's the same part, still fits, and then they're going to throw it in, and it's just not going to work. Or it's just going to, like the fail rate thing that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping Sony does some sort of partnership, because Sony, I think towards the end of this, like within the last year or two,
they started having PS4 branded hard drives.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Like, they need a branded thing, or work with a company to get a sticker on the boxes for these of like compatible with PlayStation 5, because you're going to have a lot of people, especially because it sounds like it's going to be easier because it's just an empty slot on your system that you're going to be able to pop it in, to where it's not going to be as intimidating as the PS4 ones. I know people that are listening right now are like, it wasn't intimidating. You tell someone who isn't used to electronics to pop the hood of their PS4 and then open up their, like with the screwdriver take stuff out.
This is the society that most people don't know how to jump their car.
Yeah. Yes. Changing a tire freaks them out.
Yeah. I mean, again, most of you that are listening to us are like, oh, okay, yeah, it wasn't okay, yes, because you've been able to browse the internet and find this show, or you've been around us long enough that you know these things that are going on. You've seen YouTube videos, to use YouTube as a resource. But again, step back, take your console to your neighbor's house and be like, hey, can you open this? And they're going to be like, I'm not opening that.
Well, and even when you open it on like the launch PS4s, you open up that thing and you still have more stuff you have to interact with to get the hard drive out.
Yeah.
So there's a certain level of ease that could potentially be on a PS5 that could lead to situations where people are going to make mistakes and they'll be like, oh my God, this new game I bought runs like shit. And it's like, well, because you freaking got the wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I fully expect, to your point, I fully expect one of the sides of this thing to slide off. Just to slide right off and snap back on. But
yeah. Usually NVMEs, they have like a screw that comes with them that goes right on to hold it down. I'm wondering what their solution is for that, if they're going to actually have like a panel open so you can screw that down, or if it's going to be like a slot that you just kind of pray.
With rails on the side or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That it works. But yeah, so those are the cost of everything. Right now, Sony's plan looks better, but Xbox's plan looks more convenient. It's just going to be...
But I also think it opens the doors, too, for Xbox to make larger drives or smaller drives, you know?
Yeah, like a 500 gig one would then bring you up to a terabyte for the Series S. That might be just enough for some people. But I wish Sony in the next week or two would be like, hey, day one, this drive will work.
Yeah. Because like even like Cerny was like, well, like, during his talk, we talked about that months ago. He's like, well, the drives that we want to have used in there are available to us, but we're not really sure if they're going to be available to the general public. And then the stuff that like Wario's been tweeting out this week that he's even putting caveats on there, like we believe this drive will work with PS5, but Sony hasn't said what drive needs to work with it yet. And we are now almost to October.
And if they make any sort of concessions of just like, okay, that drive will work, but it's just like, but is it going to be the best drive I can have?
Now, and again, the thing that I would tell everybody right now, don't pre-order a drive. Don't even buy that Xbox drive if you get an Xbox Series X, Series, whatever console you get. It appears to be that all the rumors, and nobody's shot it down yet, is that you're going to be able to use your external USB HDDs and move stuff back and forth. Is that moving it back and forth going to be faster or slower than just re-downloading the game?
Actually,
I don't know.
Xbox, someone timed it already.
Okay. So how long does it take?
Depending on the size of the game, 2 to I think 10 minutes is what I saw.
So that will be faster than downloading.
Yes.
So I think if you go buy a 2 terabyte USB external drive and put like download your 6 or 7 games that you're playing, and download your 6 or 7 games that you're playing, put 3 or 4 of them on your external drive and put 2 of them or 3 of them on your SSD, and then when you want to play Division, just move something else off and put Division back on.
But again, that thing is only confirmed to be happening on Xbox because Sony has not fucking talked yet. So we'll see. I'm hoping next week we'll find something. I just don't know if Sony probably would invite people to their headquarters to test this out as opposed to
now with COVID.
Who knows? The Sony's weird though. They we'll see what happens. Okay, let's get to the big thing. We've already talked a lot about the current things, but we missed this, so we're a little late talking about this. So get ready for us to reiterate everything that you probably heard, analyzed. Pretend this is ESPN and we're talking about the same fucking football game for a week. Microsoft has purchased Bethesda for $7.5 billion, and holy shit, when I woke up Monday morning and saw this, I didn't believe it.
So we recorded late on Sunday night, and I stayed up, and and then we were up even later just talking to Josh. So then I didn't have to. I don't remember if I had to work or if I closed or if I was off.
You closed.
But then I get a text message from Michael before I wake up, which is happens once every 5 years.
Because you're an hour ahead of me to begin with.
Yeah, so I think Michael had to work anyways. But the fact that if I get any text from Michael before 10 a.m., something's going on.
Mm-hmm. Dave's not on my priority list when I'm up getting breakfast before work. I'm someone I got to text.
I might only text him because I'm awake at 7 a.m. at work. That's something that comes into my mind, and it's more or less for me to text it to him for him to read it whenever he reads it, not that I need any response from him at the moment.
Exactly.
Bethesda, Xbox bought Bethesda, and I'm like, what? So then I roll over, and I think at the same time, I looked at my phone, and my wife had tagged me in something on Twitter because she was already at work.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on here? And then I'm kind of scrolling through, and I'm like, $7.5 billion.
To put in perspective, Disney bought Marvel for $4 billion, and they bought Star Wars for $4 billion. LucasArts specifically for $4 billion.
Yeah.
Bethesda got almost as much as them for, I believe it's 8 studios,
but they bought all their IPs. So ZeniMax is in there too.
ZeniMax owns Bethesda.
Yeah, so they bought ZeniMax. They bought ZeniMax, which is obviously they bought a publisher. They didn't buy a studio. They bought a publisher, which is even crazier. And there's been all this talk and everything like that already. So Microsoft purchased Zenima for $7.5 billion, therefore giving them 8 studios, including Bethesda's Softworks, Idea, Arcane, and more. So over 2,000 employees around the world. IPs now owned by Microsoft include Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, which is already going to come to Game Pass at the end of this month.
Yes.
Wolfenstein, Quake, Dishonored, and more. Microsoft will honor previous deals with PlayStation because they have to. Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop still timed exclusives. And, obviously the thing you said with the perspective of Disney and Star Wars. Okay, so I put this in the Facebook group and a couple people got on me about this, but just alone from before purchasing Bethesda, the amount of revenue that they got from Game Pass, if they took the profits from Game Pass or the revenue from Game Pass, and obviously this is not how you do this, but they could pay for the purchasing of Bethesda within 4 years.
Yeah.
Just off Game Pass revenue. Strictly.
If all the 15 million people were paying the full amount.
Right. Well, it's gone up 5 million since June.
Yes.
And there hasn't really been any sales on it other than the first month is $1 for Game Pass PC.
Yeah. And PC just increased their price for just Game Pass by itself.
And this doesn't include Microsoft's money from console sales or you buying the game on PS5 and now is putting money in Microsoft's pocket. And the people that are just going to buy the next Elder Scrolls for $70 on Xbox and not worry about Game Pass. So, this is huge. And the big conversation, and I don't know the answer that you're going to say to this, but I'm going to ask you this. Is Starfield going to be playable on PS5?
No. I feel like when they said, we will honor our current deals and everything else will be on a game-by-game basis, they're only honoring those deals because, one, it was already announced for those consoles, and they don't want to get the bad look. And two, I'm sure there's a buyout clause that they could have paid Sony a certain amount of money to then remove that exclusivity, and they didn't want to spend that money.
Mm-hmm. Or they didn't want to give it to Sony. They're like, we'd rather just make our own money. We'll make money from selling our game on your platform.
And then we'll throw our Xbox logo on your console just, for the hell of it.
Yeah, because now when you boot up Deathloop, it's going to say Xbox Game Studios.
Yes.
On your PlayStation.
Yeah, which I think it probably already says for Minecraft, but
it does. Minecraft Dungeons.
Yeah. But it's going to say that for some big games now, for 2 potential big games that are, people are excited about. So I heard a lot of people saying it's mostly people that are upset that they're going to potentially lose these franchises, which are huge franchises. I don't blame PlayStation fans for being upset about it. I'm kind of upset, but I already going into this gen knowing I'm going to buy both. I'm kind of happy, especially I can save a ton of money because I'm going in on Game Pass. I don't see PlayStation fans upset that Final Fantasy 16 is timed or console exclusive for PlayStation. So I don't see Microsoft's incentive to put these on other consoles when they're trying to get Game Pass in as many people's homes as possible. So I don't think Starfield, the next Elder Scrolls, the next Fallout, I don't see those going to PlayStation because they don't have to, and Game Pass is a big thing. Minecraft is still being supported on PlayStation because it was already there. Minecraft Dungeons was already kind of there as you can't have Minecraft Dungeons only on Xbox, but then you have baseline Minecraft everywhere else. It just doesn't make sense. But now that Game Pass is a thing, they would be silly to put that on PlayStation, even as an advertisement for Game Pass. Unless
they just figure out a way to get Game Pass to run on PlayStation.
Which they won't. They wanted to do it on Nintendo. Nintendo didn't want to do it.
So the biggest thing that I feel like this does, even if these games do end up going multi-platform, which I don't think they will. I agree with you that these games will not be multi-platform.
Game Pass changes everything.
Right. And the reason why it changes everything is because the thing that people have been pointing at with Game Pass, look at the games that left, look at the games that left, look at the games that left. Okay, because I don't want to Netflix my video games. That's bull. Okay, I'm not saying that you're wrong. But now, Bethesda is an Xbox studio, which means every single game that they release will be on Game Pass forever.
Yes. And their previous catalog will then be there as well.
Forever.
Yeah.
So even if you are just buying Game Pass for first party, because if you buy a first party game, if you own an Xbox and you buy a first party game for $70, I'm sorry, I just think you're dumb. It just doesn't make sense.
The only unless it's a cool collector's edition that you're like, I need to have this collector's edition. I don't think there's a reason to buy the $70 game.
You should just get Game Pass. Like,
yeah. And most games are live for services either, so you can't even use the excuse of like, well, if the servers are down, I can't play my game, because most games are going to have some sort of freaking online connectivity anyway.
It just doesn't make sense. It's like going to, it's bad as it's like going to the store, like, and buying House of Cards on disc, on DVD when it's on Netflix. And it's not going anywhere. It's Netflix made it. Like, it's not going anywhere. So I don't think it's
Kevin Spacey might have ruined that.
I mean, House of Cards might be something. The show itself is gone. It's not being done anymore. But if somebody wants to go back and watch season 1, they can on Netflix, as long as you have an active Netflix.
I'm just saying it might be harder to buy a DVD of House of Cards now than it is to stream it on Netflix.
I don't even think is it available in DVD?
Yeah, they were releasing those on DVD.
But I still think any like Netflix original. That I think that it's weird for you to go buy that on, 30 years down the road, is Netflix going to be gone? Maybe, but I don't get it. And then I feel like if you're a Fallout fan, if you're a Starfield fan, if you're an Elder Scrolls fan, like, you're buying an Xbox. If you're not playing on PC.
Well, it's funny though, when Sarah's the one that like woke me up and it was like, Michael, like, you got to wake up for work, and also Bethesda was bought by Microsoft. So, and she's a big Elder Scrolls fan. So she's like, oh, you can get an Xbox now. Like, she immediately, because that was the thing. And she's like, Michael, you're not going to get Xbox just for Game Pass because you have a PC. And then she's just like, well, no, I want to play Game Pass games because all the Elder Scrolls games are going to come there, and they will all come to there. Like, they own them now. There's no reason to stop the whole backlog from coming to Game Pass. So now she's like, hey, you should get an Xbox. You should totally get that like $35 a month thing, because I want to play the new ones and not have to pay $70 for them, because you're already going to have that service.
And then the stuff that we've already been hearing within the first 7 to 10 days is of like complete engine overhauls for Fallouts, and
which they already kind of announced, but I still don't believe them. I believe it now with Microsoft's money. Potentially. They were doing pretty well with money. They were really set on their creative
I know,
engine.
but I'm saying that like now so Fallout 76 was rushed. And it was rushed for whatever reason. Maybe now they
now have someone else in charge that can
tell them like, no, we can afford a 3-month delay. We can absorb the payroll to make it right.
Or is this worth it? Like, is this game a good idea? No, let's not do it. Just like they've stumbled a little bit with Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein 1 came out and it set the world on fire, and then, the stuff after it, that co-op game, and then 2 stumbled a little bit. Now they have Microsoft to be like, is that good? Not that Microsoft's great at this. I mean, look at Halo 5, look at the last Gears game, though that was actually pretty good. The previous Gears game before that one. So Microsoft's not perfect at this, but at least it's another set of eyes to like...
Yeah, but I think Phil Spencer's gonna be like, all right, hold up, just pump the brakes for a second. Let's talk about this. Like, let's break it down. Like, let's see if it's something we can do, or
how buggy can we make this game? How
it's gotten to the point where I was talking to somebody, that a friend of mine that streams, and I was talking to him about it, and he's like, well, Bethesda games is it a bug or a feature? I'm like, that's not how the game's supposed to work.
But that's how Bethesda games have been.
Right.
And this also gives, like, people haven't really been talking about it enough, but Microsoft's been trying to find like a in the Japanese market. They now have Tango Gameworks, who's doing Ghostwire Tokyo. Like, they have now like a Japanese studio run by a big Japanese name to work with. So they have that. You have id, who they can probably hire John Carmack again, who kind of, Bethesda hated John Carmack. They kind of like took his baby away from him. Now Microsoft can come in and be like, take another shot at Doom, or we need to get Quake going, because Quake can be the next esport that Bethesda wanted.
We put it in the Facebook chat. Somebody's like, Halo with Doom speed.
id makes really gorgeous games. That id tech powering the next Halo could be a match made in heaven.
And here's the biggest thing too, to think that like, oh well, like Bethesda's just going to be Bethesda, like, so like Guerrilla helped Kojima.
Like
Like they're
People
gonna
share
talk to each other. They're gonna help each other. If for some reason Bethesda figures out an engine thing, like that engine thing will be used at 343. That engine thing will be used at Ninja Theory if it fits what they're trying to do. And this is the biggest thing that people were talking about this current gen, almost previous gen now, is Xbox doesn't have any games. Well, they fixed that.
Well, so they went from 15 studios to now 23.
Right,
they went
like
from
at E3 last year, I think they were in single digits, right?
Yeah, because they bought 5 studios and then they bought like 2 more this year. So now they have the first party lineup because now you have Halo, you have Gears, you have Forza, you have Fable, you have Banjo. Banjo could be on the level of like a Ratchet and Clank if they wanted to use Banjo again.
You have Rare. You have a very talented studio. Like
you have the potential in Rare to be like another Insomniac because they used to be like Insomniac, kind of. So you have that, and then now you have Wolfenstein, you have Dishonored, you have Fallout, which is going to have a TV show next year from Amazon, which has potential to be huge for them.
But I also think like a studio like Rare, now that when Rare was purchased by Microsoft, they were in the single digit studio. So it's like, hey, you gotta make something. We gotta have something first party. You gotta do it. And now there's 23 studios. So they could release, in theory, a first party game a different first party game every month for almost 2 years.
They can finally have the thing that Sony was so good at, where God of War and Spider-Man came out the same year. Yeah. And I think Days Gone came out the same year as well. So they had 2 because Days Gone was okay. But Spider-Man and God of War were competing against each other for Game of the Year.
Yeah.
And
then you have Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us in the same year.
Yeah. And Microsoft to this point where maybe they would have one first-party title. Maybe one
possibly you
title.
had Halo and Gears at the same time. Maybe.
Yeah. And now they can just compete against themselves. So this is huge with what it could end up doing for Microsoft. My question is, which I had fun on Twitter. I went in one of my Dave things, but instead of on a Facebook group, I was on Twitter where I just like talk about games. Does Sony need to answer? Do you think, because now Sony has only like, hold on, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Sony has 13 studios. Mm-hmm. Do they need to answer? We already know they've been looking.
Do they need to answer? No, I don't think they need to answer. Do I think that they're going to answer? Not in the next 6 months.
No, because a big deal like this doesn't just happen in 6 months. But if you want to put it in a sports world, when a team in your division signs a big free agent, you're going to be like, shit, we need to probably also compete if we want to, actually have a shot. So I was theorizing on Twitter with a couple people.
I saw this. Square would be the thing. If they could
Square
buy Square. Yeah.
How is Square worth more money than Bethesda?
I don't think so,
ZeniMax?
because is Square a publisher?
Yes.
Okay. So they have they publish as Square Enix?
Yes.
Okay. Because I had never heard of ZeniMax until Monday.
See, I knew ZeniMax because I'm nerdy like that. Square Enix is a publisher. They have multiple internal studios, but then they also own... So they also own like a cloud gaming service. They own multiple online gaming services. They have a whole business unit. So there's more than just video games that they do.
Yeah, I think that would make them worth more then.
Worth more, right? And then, they publish the Avengers. They own like the Deus Ex studio. Mm-hmm. They own a bunch of other studios that aren't just the Japanese studios. Do you think they would be worth more, or do you think they value themselves more than ZeniMax? Because I feel like ZeniMax has put a price out there that it's just like...
I think that they are worth more based on, with looking into some of the stuff that they have, some of the IPs that they IP partnerships. Because that Marvel's is a partnership. They don't own the IP, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that are going with that. And I would be curious. I would have to really look at what Square owns outright, because obviously ZeniMax, Bethesda owned their stuff outright. The one that I think would be crazy is based on what we were talking about earlier. Do you see one of these companies buying Ubisoft?
And they're in kind of turmoil, so like
if Sony bought Ubisoft,
that would. But here's the question: I don't think Ubisoft is worth as much as Bethesda or ZeniMax. I think it would be half.
I don't think it'd be half. I think it'd be pretty close. I mean, some of those franchises, like Rainbow Six alone as an esport, like Bethesda does. I mean, Quake's kind of that, but not really.
No. I think Bethesda would be, or ZeniMax is worth more just because of the IP. The IPs are worth more, and then you're getting more studios. Though Ubisoft has like an infinite number of studios, it seems, how they make games. You know what I found hilarious though, which people were tweeting stuff out. Microsoft last year bought Obsidian. Obsidian are the creators of Fallout.
Yeah, Fallout.
They had a Fallout. Yeah, they Obsidian made Fallout. They lost Fallout in a sale when ZeniMax bought Bethesda and bought some other things. Then Obsidian had a shot of making New Vegas. They hated that experience because the Bethesda engine shit, the creative engine, was just a mess to work with. So then, they did their own thing. They made Outer Worlds, which is just Fallout in space.
Right.
Bethesda then is like, hey, we're going to do Fallout in space. It's called Starfield. Then just 2 months ago, Microsoft and Obsidian announced basically an Elder Scrolls game made by Obsidian. And now Obsidian and Bethesda are sister studios. Like, how fucking awkward is that? But also now Obsidian could make a Fallout game if they wanted. Like, Microsoft can be like, hey, Obsidian, the creators of Fallout and Fallout New Vegas, they can do their thing now.
Yeah.
So I know, like, I was theorizing about, like, like Sony can answer this, and like Square is the only big one I can think of. Everything else I feel like wouldn't feel
unless they got EA
impactful. Which like I think
EA Sports, like they would have said, well, EA video game. I guess it's all EA. I feel like for some reason I thought it was like some other company, but
I think EA and Activision are just untouchable. Like, those companies are doing their own thing. They're doing their own thing successfully. And they have, like, shareholders that they probably would answer to
which would be the same thing for Ubisoft, I think, too.
Yeah. Ubisoft, I think, might be too big or too complicated. And also, Sony probably, like, until Ubisoft gets their shit together, I don't think anyone's going to be, like, trying to buy Ubisoft.
Yeah.
The only studios I can think of, you mentioned earlier, like, if Amazon bought 505 Games, it's like 505 Games. I don't think they really own too many IPs that would be of value because they're strictly a publisher. Capcom makes the most sense, like, in terms of, like, smaller publisher that they can get for, like, a good bargain and have worthwhile IPs. Though I think Nintendo would come out of the dark if Capcom said it was for sale, and Nintendo would open up their war chest finally and be like, no, fuck that. We want Street Fighter. We want Mega Man.
Right.
And then Nintendo would probably come in there. Square, like, I pulled up, Square owns Crystal Dynamics. They own Eidos Montreal. They own Tokyo RPG Factory. They own a ton of studios. So Square would probably be the most expensive one. Sega/Atlas could be something, though that's another one. I feel like if Sega said they were for sale, Nintendo would pop up out of nowhere and be like, we want Sonic. Like, and go for it that way. Or we want Sonic in all those, RPGs. It's just funny because, like, just a month ago we were talking about, Sony is, like, open to more offers, but I wonder if now they whatever teams they were looking at or team developers they were looking at, do they pull back on of just like, shit, it's gonna look like we're trying to play catch up, if they buy, like, one studio, because they spent like $250 million for Insomniac. They spent like $250 million for 1% of Epic.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of just how much is Sony willing to spend if they feel like they need the answer. But you're right, it's not going to be anytime soon.
I guess the easiest counter would be try to go get WB Games. Like, that would be the easiest, like, quick counter. You get a ton of IPs with that. And it wouldn't cost as much as ZeniMax did.
No, but they would then be releasing a bunch of stuff on Xbox because all that stuff's been previously announced.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, like, I think that the criticism of like, oh, Microsoft's just buying its first party. Well, Sony did too. Sony bought Naughty Dog. Sony bought Sucker Punch.
They've had relationships on it.
Yeah, after they had already paid these companies to produce profitable products for them, they decided to make them part of their company. Like, that's the thing is like, and then like, I think I'd have to look it up again. I was looking at it before, and I could be wrong, but I feel like Uncharted 1 was made before they owned them.
They might have purchased them right around the same time. I feel like I can look that up.
Infamous 1, I'm almost 100% sure it was made before they owned them. When I was looking,
I would have to check that one.
Yeah, when I was looking some of it up. So I mean, those are the two most recent, like, other than Insomniac, those are the two most recent studios that they've acquired. And Insomniac was the no-brainer. They'd already been producing exclusive IPs, profitable product for them. So like that, that was like the no-brainer. Sure, they went and did, Sunset Overdrive. But I feel like any of these one-off studios in 2020 can't be a one-off studio anymore. I guess the only one that you would say is like a 1 or 2 game studio that I would classify as a quote-unquote one-off is CD Projekt Red.
Yeah. Sony acquired Naughty Dog in 2001. So way before Uncharted.
Yeah, but it was after, like, they made
the Crash games
before they were owned by Sony. But Sony paid them to make them.
Yeah, because they were owned by Universal, and Universal got out of the gaming thing.
Yeah, so when did they buy Sucker Punch?
Let me see about that.
Because like I was looking at some of it when I was like trying to have this conversation with when people were talking about but prior to the Bethesda purchase of like how Game Pass is working with the first party studios and
2011.
Yeah, so that was, and I believe Infamous came out before 2011.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So. But then obviously when they bought Sucker Punch, or Sony has already owned Infamous and they paid Sucker Punch to make it. Sucker Punch
this happens
Sly,
all the time.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So
that happens all the time. I've been like going back and forth on it. Like, I'm excited that these studios are like being bought because I like a good console where it gives us stuff to talk about. But then at the same time, it scares me having all these great publishers and developing teams under one umbrella in case shit goes wrong.
Yeah.
You lose a lot of talent.
Well, it turns into kind of like sort of what happened for a long time with like cars. Like you had 3 car companies essentially, and they all made all the cars. And then over time, you started seeing other car companies start showing up and being competitors. Yeah, there was always other car companies, but now it's like you're not wrong. Now it's going to be like, do I, like the legitimate question is, even 2 years down the road, if you don't own a PS5 or an Xbox Series, like, do you go to the store and you're looking at it and it's like, okay, so, $300, let's say they both cost $300, there's a price drop or whatever, and you can get the Series X or the PS5 for $300. Like, do I buy this console for $300 and pay, $50 to $70 for every game I purchase, or do I buy this box for $300 and give them $15 a month and play 150 games? Like, and it's two completely different directions. But it's fascinating and it's cool. And it's pushing both it's pushing both companies to do things, and it's just going to be better for gamers. Like we win when this happens. In
the short term, we don't know what long-term effects this will have, but in the interim, right now, this is like going to be a really good couple years for the start of this launch of these consoles.
And the majority of our listeners are PlayStation players, and I'm in the same boat. I bought Destiny because I owned a PS3 and I got a PS4 at the time. But if you bought a PS4 because of the Destiny exclusivity that they had at the time, whether it was that really cool white PS4 or that you were buying the next Bungie game because you enjoyed playing it and the better stuff was on PlayStation, if you bought that 5 years ago or 6 years ago, whatever, you cannot be mad that Xbox bought Bethesda.
Yeah, no, it's the double standard stuff. It's like I meant when I talked about Final Fantasy 16. You didn't see anyone upset that Final Fantasy 16 was exclusive to PlayStation. People were like, "Oh yeah, of course it is." And now Microsoft is like, because Sony's been buying exclusive content like this entire generation, like
Destiny, Call of Duty. You know, like it's
Street Fighter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Street Fighter wouldn't have happened if Sony didn't do it. So shouldn't Sony get the credit for it? Okay, now, quote unquote, possible better Bethesda games will happen because Microsoft is funding it.
Yeah, Microsoft has gotten better, though. They fucked up Master Chief Collection, but they fixed it eventually. So they have gotten better with that stuff. But yeah, no, agreed. Like, there's potential that, like, a second QA team will look at the Bethesda games. Or maybe say, like, Fallout 76 shouldn't exist.
Or say that game can't come out in October, it's coming out in February.
Yeah, like, hey, we already have 3 other games coming out this year from our first-party studio, so let's, like, spread this out. Yeah, you have time now. Because before Bethesda, I think Fallout 76 was the game Bethesda released that year. Like, that was the game, so it had to come out no matter what. And
but now they can go away. Like, Sony Santa Monica went away for a little while, and we didn't hear from them. And they were working on stuff, and a couple things got canceled, and you know, and then they went and paid for Cory Barlog to come back to work on God of War. Like, how long was Bend quiet for? Like, Sony Bend was quiet for a long time because Horizon was doing well, and you know, Infamous, whether you liked it or not, Infamous Second Son existed, and you know, Uncharted 4 existed. Like these other things that people could play, and by the time of, you know, making them think, yeah, it'd be cool to know what they're working on, but I've got all this other stuff to play. And you know, Microsoft was like, okay, what's Rare doing? Like, you know, 5 years ago, like, where's Rare's game? What do you have Rare doing? What are they making? Like,
yeah,
because you had such a small compacted library, and now, or studio library, now you don't.
Yeah, like, people were, like, really upset, like, where's Fable? It's been so long since we've seen a Fable. And
but now then it comes out broken, and you're like, this is bullshit. This is why, you know, Microsoft shouldn't have bought you. Like, okay, stop it.
Yeah. So, like, now they have a bench they can work at. They don't have to, like, tire out their starters, which is like Halo. Halo doesn't need to be a yearly franchise or a biannual franchise, so it doesn't have to be anymore. They can tell the Halo team 343, like, take your time, because we have fucking Starfield coming out next year. And then after that, we have Elder Scrolls coming out. You know, they have stuff to work with. Everything is on fire. Everything's kind of crazy. I love it, because it gives us stuff to talk about until we get these damn consoles in our hands. And then,
and by the way, that was 110% planned the day before pre-orders. 110%
oh, for sure.
planned.
Yeah, that because the deal wasn't finalized, because these deals take forever.
Yeah.
As soon as they got, like, the confirmation, like, okay, we're gonna hit into the finalization aspect of this, you know, $1 billion deal,
and then them putting it on Game Pass, putting Doom on Game Pass like next week. It's just like,
yeah. But, like, how annoyed was Amazon when they announced their thing, and then they realized, like, shit, like, okay, we can't talk to Bethesda anymore.
Right.
Like, Stadia doesn't have Bethesda games to work with. They had Doom, like, Doom and Doom Eternal were, like, a big showcase for them, because, like, look how quick this is.
Well, it's fascinating to me that you talked about it. Like Ubisoft, if Ubisoft works on Luna, like it might, like you're saying, there might be a specific Ubisoft channel to it, and I can get access to a ton of Ubisoft games for $6 a month. Sign me up. As long as the tech works, sign me up. That's a huge library. Like,
yeah, and that's the only question.
Yeah,
does the tech work?
It's the same reason why Stadia is struggling, because it's a la carte. It's great that you don't have to have a console, but
need the library, which is why people are excited about xCloud. That's all the news. We can move on.
So
what have you been playing?
I'll do a quick playing and watching. I know you have a review. So speaking of xCloud, I started really, really tinkering with this and figuring out what worked and what didn't work. So it works really well on my Samsung S9 phone.
What works?
xCloud. I said speaking of xCloud.
Oh, okay.
I've been spent time really tinkering with it. So.
Okay.
You cannot download the games. I think I at one point in time said that there was a download function. That download function just kicks the download off on your console or your PC. So, it works. It worked really well on my phone when connected to Wi-Fi. I haven't really put it through the paces of trying to be on 5G. The little bit I did at work wasn't great. Connecting the Xbox controller to the Bluetooth is super easy. and it was running really well. I have an old like Galaxy or Samsung Tab E tablet that only has a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection, and it doesn't like that. It really wants you to have a 5.0 gigahertz connection. But it still worked. It was okay. I put this through the pace with Destiny. So like this is the game I play on a regular basis, and I went into PvP. Like I put it right into the pace. So I was connecting to other people, as Michael's getting clawed by his cat trying to put it on screen.
No, he's trying to get on screen, and I'm trying to pick him up and put him on the couch.
So the phone was great. The Tab E tablet was so. My daughter's 2-year-old Chromebook actually did really, really well, and I was actually surprised it worked on a Chromebook. But a Chromebook has an Android-based operating system.
Yeah.
So it worked really well on there. So I was actually pretty impressed with that. The only problem is right now Owen's using the Chromebook for virtual learning, and it stays at the babysitter's house sometimes, which kind of sucks. But it did make me want to look into getting one of those controller clips. Not the controller that clicks onto the side of the phone, but the one I could take my Xbox controller and clip it to my phone, so I don't have to hold my phone. So like that's super fascinating to me. And then it also got me starting to look at tablets, which my wife's gonna kill me. But it seemed like the little bit of like reading and YouTubing I was doing, that Galaxy Fire tablet might be like the best value, like that $120 tablet, the 10-inch one, in terms of ability to run it. Like like there's a like you get like a Microsoft Surface or something like that, and that'll run it great, but that's like a $700 tablet.
Yeah.
So but I was actually really impressed with it. Owen was playing like Super Lucky Tail. I put a picture on Twitter and in the group of him playing Super Lucky Tail, and he wasn't getting annoyed while he was playing it. He's terrible at the game because he's 5, but
were you plugging in or Bluetooth?
That was for the Chromebook. I had plugged it in.
Okay.
The other tablet I had Bluetoothed it, and I can Bluetooth it to the Chromebook as well. But the plugging it in, the rumble appeared to work. So because it's plugged in, so that's that was always good. And I just I only have one Xbox controller, so I'm like, is it connected to my phone? Is it connected to the tablet? Is it connected to the Chromebook? Is it connected to the Xbox? Is it connected to the PC? Like I didn't necessarily want to remember all the time. But I was really impressed with that. So I'm gonna try to check out some other games on there and really see how that's gonna work. And then I went back to Division 2. They brought out another season. I think it's like technically like season 3. So I had realized I really hadn't finished Warlords of New York 100%. So I kind of got that done, got out of New York, and they released this seasonal activity or new activity called the Summit. The Summit is a skyscraper. And it's 100 floors, and it's essentially a horde mode per floor. Every 10 floors, you get a boss. And I, went in with a couple, Randy and Justin that listened to the show and play games with us. And like the first like floor 1 through 10 was pretty easy, and then because right now you can jump up to like floor 51 if you want to, and each set of 10 floors has modifiers and different challenges. And I was like, so when we had like 3 of us, I'm like, let's go to floor 20. Got our ass kicked, like so bad. It's been so long since I played that game, and like looking at builds and like I feel like this 100 floor event might be where the division can truly shine, because like the raids seem like they're really cool, but they're 8 players. You can matchmake in the Summit. I don't know if like the loot and stuff coming from there is any good or not, but like I just had fun like playing that game, and it kind of made me want to go back and look at my gear and figure that stuff out. So it's been so long since I've been in there and looking at weapons, and I started looking at a couple YouTube videos, and there's so much depth to that game. Like hopefully the rewards from the Summit are worth it. I'm not hearing any things like anybody like super praising the rewards from there, but I'm not seeing people like completely crap on it either. So I will kind of start dabbling back into that again, trying to get some of my my gear at more of a current level, and try to really maybe make a build. So if you are interested in playing the Division 2, like just I'm playing on PS4 right now, so just hit us up. The thing that is also interesting that I believe that means that Division 3 is more in works. Again, another content creator that I know, he did a pretty cool video on this, and during their State of the Game, Massive, the studio that makes Division, said that the Division 2 will work on next-gen consoles, but they are not doing any upgrading to it.
Okay.
Which means they're doing Division 3.
Probably.
And it's probably going to come out in the next 6 to 9 months.
It might be too soon, but...
Division 2 came out 2 years after Division 1. And we're getting there 2 years again.
Yeah, okay.
So, because Warlords was kind of the kicking off of year 2, and that was in March. So, I mean, we'll have to see. But that's pretty much really all I played. I watched the Lions win on Sunday. They actually won a game, which is amazing. So, but all right, go ahead.
All right, so first game I'm going to talk about, this isn't a review, I'm going to go what I'm playing before I do the review. I dabbled in WWE 2K Battlegrounds. We were sent a code to cover it. So game this year for WWE, they skipped their annual release because the last game was a trash fire. So they're taking a year off, and they put out this arcadey game called WWE 2K Battlegrounds.
NBA Jam WWE.
Yeah, it's made by the same team that made the NBA Playgrounds, I believe that was it's called.
Yeah, sounds right.
So this is like a cross between like WWE All-Stars, which came out last gen, and a mobile game, like in terms of how it looks and how it kind of plays. It's a real simplistic style. It's very easy to pick up and play, and it's actually kind of fun. Like the gameplay is simple enough, especially in comparison to how overly complicated the previous wrestling games have been. Like this is a nice simplification with it to match the very bizarre art style that this game has. They kind of just look like they're in big head mode, but their bodies are in proportion. They just look weird. They just look off.
It's Funko Pop mode.
Kinda, yeah. I got used to it. Some wrestlers look better than others in terms of like fitting their like look and character design into this art style. So some wrestlers look better than others. Others sometimes just look scary as all hell. So the game has its art style going for it. There's a story mode. That's like cutscenes are done through comic book panels where Paul Heyman is told by Vince McMahon to make your own wrestling league, and he basically wants to make regional fight clubs, basically like person in New York. So you play generic New York character who then has to defend his turf against other wrestlers that are actual wrestlers from the WWE. So that's kind of interesting, though a little disappointed that it's like the generic characters that they have are just real bad. There is a creative character you can use for outside of the story mode. So it has a basic art style or a basic like story arc for you to go, and the gameplay is fun enough for what it is. But the biggest problem I have with this game early on is most of the roster is locked behind in-game currency and microtransactions. So they have a random assortment of like wrestlers available to pick from the start to just play in the free modes, and you basically have to play the story or play the other online modes to unlock the in-game currency. I did about 15 matches, and that basically equated to me being able to unlock 2 like mid-tier, mid-card wrestlers, because the main event wrestlers or the big names, like the legends, cost a large amount of currency to unlock. So it's kind of a grind for you to get all the characters early on, which sucks. That like for such an experience, it's like, hey, this is like the fun and easy WWE game. Locking all of those behind a grind is a really I'm like completely confused on why they would do that, other than they wanted to make money, because they do have their in-game store where you could just buy gold coins to purchase the wrestlers. Though when you go to the menu, it doesn't tell you how much the gold coin packs cost until you get to the PlayStation store, and then it just takes you straight to checkout, and then you see how much it costs, and it's horribly priced, and I feel like it's kind of icky how they're, handling unlocking like some of the big names, especially when a lot of the big names that are just on the cover cost a shit ton of currency to unlock. Like the ones on the cover should just be available right away to play, but instead you get like a random assortment of wrestlers that makes no sense why you get to start with those.
Does the fact that the game is $40 soften the blow at all?
No, because I still think they're overpriced for what they're doing. It's a wrestling game that the big advertisement they've been doing is, look how huge our roster is. And then when you jump into the game for your first match, and it's like, okay, you have 5 women wrestlers to choose from, and like 7 or 8 male wrestlers to choose from. And then you're like, well, where's Stone Cold? Where's The Rock? They're on the cover. Oh, no. You're going to have to play like 2-3 hours of the story to get one of those characters. It's just really shitty. Gameplay's fun for what it is, but I'll have a full review next week once I like finish up the story and dabble in the online stuff. They are doing some interesting stuff with the online. The only problem I have is something I have a problem with a lot. Is sometimes when you hop online to games, there's just no one playing. Like, there's a really cool...
I thought I heard you could only play with friends, though.
No, they have like this I forget what it's called, Keen of the Battlegrounds, where you pick a wrestler and they just keep sending online competition at you until you lose.
Okay.
Pretty cool. Can rarely ever find a match. So there's some interesting things they're trying to do online. But it's just no one's playing it. But hopefully the game's been out now like a week, so maybe hopefully this week more people will pick it up, though the reviews for it haven't been favorable, so we'll see how that goes.
Do you think the reviews aren't favorable because of the microtransactions or because of the gameplay, or both?
I think it's the microtransactions are definitely a part of it, and I also think, which I'll talk about in my next review, art style takes way too much sway from people. The art style in this is considered bad by most people. I consider it bad too, but I can look past it and find some redeeming qualities about it. And I feel like the art style is so bizarre for some people that immediately is like getting it docked in reviews, as opposed to just accepting
it's definitely got an interesting marketing strategy. I'm looking on the store on their website now. You can only buy the deluxe edition on Stadia and Steam. Like, you can't buy the regular version on Stadia or Steam.
Yeah, it's weird how they're doing it. WWE is definitely pushing it hard because it's their only game they have coming out this year. I'm going to break through it. Hopefully, like, once I finish the story, I walk out with enough currency that I can just unlock all the characters. Yeah,
hopefully there's some big bump. Like, here, congratulations, you finished the story. Here's 5 characters or something, you know? Yeah,
that's what I'm hoping. But early on, I was very disappointed to play the story for, like, 2 hours and then get, like, 2 mid-card wrestlers, you know? And it's just like, oh, okay.
Because I was waiting for you to play this game before I played it so that I didn't, like, take any of your thunder away because you're more the wrestling guy. And I'm looking at this, like, a couple streams that I watched. I'm like, oh, this looks like it might be fun for me to play against my son and just mess around, you know?
And you would probably be fine with it because you have no idea who any of the wrestlers are, so you wouldn't care that, like, this wrestler's behind a paywall. And it's just like, why is Liv Morgan unlocked right away, but Asuka I have to pay 9,000 in-game currency dollars for? It's silly how they handled that. Okay, so the game I'm going to review is a game I've been talking about briefly the last two weeks. Paradise Killer. This is an open world mystery game. I described it as like perverted, sexy Ace Attorney. Though as I got further in the game, it doesn't have the depth that I would have wanted from it. But the basic story is Paradise Killer takes place on an island run by immortal beings that worship like alien gods. Their purpose on the island is to create the perfect paradise, and if a flaw is found on the island, they basically reboot the island totally and start from scratch, including like wiping or killing all the citizens that are been like kind of abducted to be there. Days before the island is about to be rebooted, the council that's in charge of the island are found murdered by a citizen possessed by a demon. It isn't an open shut case, therefore you were called in from exile and your character is Lady Love Dies, and your job is to investigate the murder, talk to all the like immortal like beings that are there, and try and determine what happened, why it happened, and who did it. And the game is open world, so you kind of just get dropped into things and you can find things at your leisure in any order possible. It can be kind of a little bit of a cluster in terms of the amount of information you get. Me and Sarah played this in like 4 sessions. And just finding stuff kind of out of order and putting the story together is an interesting take on like a mystery game. Especially usually games like this kind of just put everything in sequence for you to where they just like everything lines up perfectly in a puzzle. This one, you're just finding things randomly and then putting it all together through the interviewing of the various suspects and potential witnesses. There is some light detective work, but it's very basic. I was kind of disappointed. Like, you can look at the crime scene and it'll just have like 2 points of interest in the crime scene, and then it'll just tell you exactly what's there. There's not really much thought that you have to put into there. But the entire time you're like moving around this open world, there's a ton of collectibles. Not all the collectibles are fully explained to you what they do. And the game eventually through upgrades makes it easier to find collectibles. But the platforming is kind of bad. But the entire time we were playing, we were completely like into the story. Like, the characters are fucking weird as hell, cool as hell. The art style is fantastic. The music is like a jazzy vaporwave. The computer terminals you interact with are like 80s, 90s pop, like computer style. Like, you got the neon pinks, the neon blues. It's got a very morbid sense of humor. So we were in on the characters that are all great, all have weird names, all have amazing backstories, that we just wanted to learn more about the characters. And then we got stuck just like trying to find out as much as possible with the lore and the history of Paradise. And that ended up making us just do all the collectibles. Like, we found every single thing we can. Again, the game makes it easy to find all the collectibles because you unlock an ability to where it just points them out on the map. And we did all that. And we were just building to this trial that ends the game. They talk about the trial. You can go to the trial at any point. So you can go in with as little or as much information as possible and then figure out everything from the trial, which I guess could have led to us like accusing the wrong people. But because we got so into the characters and the story, we almost had too much information for the trial, because the trial is a little bit of a letdown in terms of there's not much you do other than present the evidence you have and then just let the game take it from there. And because we found all the possible evidence,
slam dunk.
The trial the trial for us was just super breezy. And then even though the characters and the story and how it all folded out was interesting, it almost felt like we didn't do anything in the trial, which was just kind of disappointing. But we were still entertained by the game because of the story and the lore. It's just, it kind of lets you down at the end. Unless maybe you don't collect all the collectibles and don't pursue every dialogue option, the trial might work out better because there might be a little bit of a challenge. But because we did everything, there was no challenge at the end, which just kind of left us a little disappointed. That's why, even though I love the story, I love the characters, I kind of walked away just being like, this was okay, which is why I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Okay. I really wish there was more at the end of the game to justify the time we spent doing the open world stuff outside of the characters and story. I just needed a little bit more gameplay from it for us to like really think this is one of the best games. And like after we finished it, I wrote like my basic review that I do for the show. I looked at other reviews and I saw where people were calling it one of the best detective mystery games in years. And I feel like people got really into the visuals and the characters of the thing, like me and Sarah did.
Or it just means there's not very good detective mystery games on the market right now.
Or it means that. But I think it's one of those things where me and Sarah always, we love mystery detective games, and I wanted more from the gameplay. So even though the art was like speaking to me and the music was totally the music I'm into, I just wanted more gameplay and I just didn't get it. But it's still a worthwhile experience, and it's on the Switch. I think it's on everything, but we played it on the Switch. We were provided a review copy for the game on the Switch, so just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, 3 out of 5. Like I just wanted just a little bit more, but it was still enjoyable.
Nice.
That's it for playing. I didn't even play Tony Hawk, and me and Sarah started to watch our like scary movie sort of thing where we every October we just marathon scary movies every weekend. So we started it a weekend early, and we ended up watching.
Cheater.
Yeah, hey man, we just wanted to watch some like horror movies. So we watched Polaroid and One Bedroom. They were both bad.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, because this is a genre that I will not watch.
Polaroid is about a Polaroid camera that if you take a picture of someone, that person gets killed. Bad movie, even though it started with someone from Riverdale in it, and I was like, oh shit, this might be good bad, and this turned out to be bad. And then One Bedroom was about a cult, which was interesting, but definitely not the best start to our like October.
Thank God it's September.
Yeah. But like we were like, okay, let's every Saturday night, every Sunday night, because we're both kind of off on the weekends. So it's like, okay, let's watch a scary movie, find a random one. And we didn't start out great, but we'll keep trying. We'll keep working on it. Awesome. But that is it for me for playing and watching.
All right, so we're going to hit one question really quick, because for some reason we're going long again. So shocking. Microsoft buying more stuff talk. So Randy Pinnock, I believe, posted in the Facebook group, what is the last game you guys played that you felt was a 10 out of 10? Hashtag AskDigitalDays. I guess for me, the last one that I feel like that was like I was really satisfied after I beat the game, it's got to be God of War. Mm-hmm. And the only other thing that I want to say to it is, based on some of the conversation that was happening in the Facebook post, is that a 10 out of 10 isn't a perfect game.
No.
It is, a really, really, really good game, a great game, or like a masterpiece game. But there is no such thing as a perfect game. Like, there's always going to be something that's kind of weird or wonky or wrong with a game, or something you don't enjoy. But if you walked away and you had a great time playing the game, then, I think that it can be, any game can be a 10 for the player that got more out of it or spoke to them in a different way than a game speaks to somebody else.
For me, it was The Last of Us Part 2. I still think about that game even 3 months after I played it. But that was definitely one of those games where I figured I was going to like it before I played it. I know that's not the best thing to say as someone who tries to review games, but it definitely was like everything about that game's marketing was like, hey, you're going to like this. And I liked the first one enough that I was excited for it. And then I think The Last of Us Part 2 delivered things for me, even though I do think there's flaws in it. But like you said, a 10 doesn't mean it's like a flawless game. The Last of Us was the last 10 I played. It was a little long, but that's like a good problem to have. If a game's like, maybe overstayed its welcome 2 or 3 hours, that's like a good thing in my book. Before that, I think the last like 10 out of 10 I played was Spider-Man. Which I think, Dave, you'd probably be on board with me if you
I think I would
start
too.
your Spider-Man.
Yeah, but why? I can't move it to PS5 now, so F it. I'm not going to do it until November.
Yeah.
Gotta have something cool to play on there.
Yeah, you do, because you're not going to play Demon's Souls because you don't like Demon's Souls.
No, because that's going to make me take my $70 controller and embed it in my television.
Oh God, I would. I got a Christmas gift idea now.
What? If you buy me that game, you're sending me a controller with it.
I'll see if I don't know if you remember it, but GameStop used to sell Nerf PS2 controllers. I wonder if they still make those. Like, it was just a controller it made out of a Nerf ball. Do they still have those? for current gen.
They make them for the tablets because we get Owen something for his tablet. So,
Wow.
to
Before
help.
Spider-Man, A Plague Tale: Innocence. I think that was the last
that's another.
game.
There is tons of stuff that I want to play, and I just I can't even have the attention span right now to sit down and go farther in Avengers. And it has nothing to do with the game being good, bad, or indifferent. It just has to do with shiny thing over here, shiny thing over here, shiny thing over here, new seasonal update over here. This there's just and that's the kind of thing that appeals to me and draws my interest. I also just see myself playing Division, and then I'm at work thinking about something
you're a
in
social
Division.
gamer actually.
So I enjoy that, just messing around with people. So that's the part that that keeps me the most occupied. So, but all right, again, a little longer than normal. Trying to compact them a little bit. You guys seem to like the 90-minute episodes. So, yep. As mentioned before, any of the social stuff, you can follow the main account at Digital Days Pod. Michael's Twitter, my Twitter is all in the show notes. Patreon.com/Digital Days Gaming. Support us there if you can. We'll be recording October's episode soon. For the $7 tier, you get a bonus episode. $5 gets you the 24-hour early access. $3 gets you access to a private Discord channel. And $1 is our virtual tip jar. So the support is always appreciated. Leaving a review in the show is great and helpful. It helps us move up charts on that more people might see the podcast. Again, if you're listening, maybe giving us a first try, a second try, or third try as we're getting longer, or you're here after Josh, and maybe hoping he was here again. We'll work on that. It'll probably be, I think we're shooting for December, but Josh is pretty content with what he's doing right now. For anybody thinking or wondering, we have asked if he wants to do it more often, and he's declined. So
blame him.
Yeah. Tweet at him that he's not on here every week. Other than that, next week should hopefully be, I'm going to check out a little bit of WWE, mess around with that. Michael and I have goofed around with doing text back and forth about doing some kind of stream night of making me, win or watch something that they have to talk about on a Patreon episode or something.
October is spooky month, so maybe our Patreon should revolve around some scary movies.
But other than that, just, I hope everyone has a great week. I'm sure we'll talk to you on some streams, and maybe Michael will stream a game, this month.
Maybe.
Just messing with him. He said to go back to work. He's had some other weird stuff going on, so he's good. So
yeah.
But again, thanks guys for listening, downloading, sharing the show. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you next week. Keep moving forward, and
don't be a dick. And also shout out to Hungarian Spotify. Because we charted on sometimes Spotify charts, we just pop up on the most random European Spotify charts.
You get data that I don't get.
It's kind of crazy. Thank you for listening.
Join the Facebook group if you're listening in Hungary. I want to know.
Luxembourg right now, Spotify number. Have a good one.